Do you remember your first cigar?
Yeah. My first cigar was Grape Swisher Sweet. Like all great cigars should be, I think. But we, when I was in high school, we used to go to my buddy Chris Dunston's house out in like kind of like the outskirts of Boise. And he would throw these huge bonfires that were like super fun. And I was with my buddies who were 18, and we grabbed a pack of Swisher Sweets on the like grape swishers on the way to the bonfire. And I was like trying to be cool in front of the homies and stuff. And I'd smoked weed and cigarettes at the time, but I'd never had a cigar, like a cigarello or anything. And I fucking took it straight to the face, dude. Like inhaled it full hit. And I thought I was going to puke coughing. And my buddy was like, "Did you just inhale that?" And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Yeah, don't do that again." So I learned how to smoke cigars via Grape Swisher Sweets. What was yours?
First cigar, I was probably 15, and I was with Elliot, and he's like 14 at the time. And so I was living back in Montana, but I would go back in the summers and spend the summers out in Belize. And Elliot, he was one of my day one friends in Belize, and man, the summers, so it was crazy. We would party our asses off. I mean, you could go out to the clubs. I mean, drinking age in Belize is 18, but it didn't matter. No one's IDing you.
Yeah.
So we were just partying all the time, and we got a couple of huge cigars, like twice as long as this. They were Cubans. And so we're all fucked up. I'm like, let's smoke these cigars. So we downed both these cigars, and I'm probably, I don't know. I mean, I was a lot smaller then. I was 165 pounds. Elliot's like 120 pounds. I woke up in his front yard to his mom being like, Koby. And I'm like, holy shit. I was so fucked up. His mom, she's a sweetheart. She's originally from France. And she's like, Elliot, we need to get him some aspirin and some water and some electrolytes. And dude hooked me up.
That's sweet. Was Elliot's house like the cool house that you guys could go to where the parents were pretty chill, or was it just like, if you guys crash and burn here, we'll help you out and send you on your way?
Yeah. So Elliot pretty much grew up single mom, and she was is an amazing woman, amazing mom. But she worked full time. She had her own business, so. His house was like, she was always down with all the friends to be over, but it was definitely like a flop house, for all the boys, like just to have a good time.
That's funny, because I'd imagine that because you grew up an only child, and I'd imagine that having those family hangs where you can go and like you can have your like family vibe over at Elliot's house and at your place and stuff like that. Was your house ever like the hang? Because I feel like a lot of only child, like their house ends up being the hang because the parents want them to be able to chill with their friends.
My mom felt bad that I didn't have any brothers or sisters, so she was always like, you could have all your friends over like whenever, like every weekend. So weekends, definitely, if I wasn't at someone else's house, like the whole crew was over at the house. But we didn't spend much time inside either. We were out. We were out living our Huckleberry Finn, Tom Sawyer lifestyle.
For the people who don't know, give them a little context about where like growing up in Belize and doing all that kind of stuff.
Man, it was, I grew up reading. I loved to read books when I was a little kid. That's because my mom bought me books and always wanted to. Her and I would always read together. But so my favorite books ever were Tom Sawyer, Huckleberry Finn, Swiss Family Robinson, The Boxcar Children, phenomenal series, and pretty much is like the male version of Nancy Drew.
Okay.
and the Hardy Boys. I guess that's more like the male version of Nancy Drew. But so I felt like I read all these books, and then I felt like I actually got to live them on the weekends, because I'd pack a knapsack, and put a lighter in, and put a line of fishing, a fishing line. We would just fish with hand line off the docks. We'd catch, we'd catch iguanas, catch fish, whatever, and grill fish up on the beach. We're like, 8, 9, 10 years old. And we would just leave for the whole day and go hunting for whatever we could get on. There's plum season, sea grape season. So we would like fill bags full of grapes and plums, and we'd make tents, make forts out on the beach, and you know, it was just so freaking awesome. It felt like you were a pirate out there.
Yeah.
Like 9 years old, just surviving. And there's, you know, it was all Sandro. It was all, you know, it was just so much fun.
Was that like summer and school, or was it a little bit different when you guys were in school?
No, that was mostly, that was all during school, because I grew up, I was born and raised in Belize, and I lived there till I was 12. And but in the summer times, I would spend my summers here in Montana. So that was definitely all through school year.
Got you. Some of my best memories, like being in school, was that we lived just far enough where we could ride our bikes, and it was like, I think it probably took like 25 minutes to get to school. So it wasn't like a haul to get there, but it was just long enough where it was kind of like you could have your own adventure on the way there and on the way back. And the way there always kind of felt like a job, you know, it's like kind of colder and all that sort of stuff. But on the way back, it was always so much fun, because it's like, dude, we've got, you know, like our parents aren't going to be home for a little while. We've got our bikes. So like we can go to whoever's house we want to. We can go, like, we had these bike jumps right across from my grandparents' house we'd go hang at. But I feel like that freedom that you get right after school, there's like nothing that beats that.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. That feeling of either jumping on your bike or walking. But like, well, when you first get a bike, the freedom that gives you is crazy.
Goes so much farther.
But man, no, after school adventures, I can't imagine being a kid that just has to jump in mom's vehicle and go home. After school, getting on that bike with your homie, it was always Elliot for me.
Yeah.
Dude, we got into between 3:00 getting out of school and like 4:30 p.m. the craziest things went down. I mean, you know, we were catching snakes, iguanas, crocodiles. You'd be, depending on what season it was in Belize, like we'd be walking home and it's like, oh, you know, it's European holiday season, because there'd be girls on the beach with just topless, and we're like riding our bikes. I remember one time I'm like riding my bike. It's already hard to ride on the beach because it's sandy. And I smoked like a parking block that was out in the beach. And it was like a property line marker. And I just smoked, because I was like, oh, boom, tumbled. Oh my gosh. So embarrassed. Jumped up, got on my bike, just like ran, you know, didn't get back on, but like hand drove that sucker out of there. But I mean, it was just like, it was a new adventure every single day. It was so much fun.
So, what was it like for you once you told me that like there was a shift that happened once all of your buddies started like kind of hanging out at internet cafes, and some of those adventures kind of like chilled out a little bit. So what was it like being somebody who wanted to be outside doing shit like that, and then having all your homies be like, hey, we're gonna go like play games?
Okay, so yeah, it was so so funny. So I absolutely loved being outside. I was just naturally an adventurous kid, right? I just always wanted to be outside, wanted to experience new things. And yeah, all the guys in my class, they got big into Runescape. So Runescape, I mean, this is like, you know, this is OG days, right? This is before what are the games like World of Warcraft? It's like before World of Warcraft and before whatever else is out there now. But Runescape, right? So I mean, a lot of you people probably know what RuneScape is. For those of you who don't, it was like one of the first online games that you could meet people across the whole world. It was users across the entire world, and it was such a big deal because, whoa, we're on the internet. Like it was this crazy concept. It was when so Hotmail, it was still Hotmail, and they had just came out with like instant messenger, IM. And so like you'd get off school and like you could IM your friends. Yo, what up, dude? I'm at home. Yeah, bro, what's up? Like, so then this combination of being able to be playing this online game. I mean, obviously you see like what Call of Duty is, right? It's like the beginning stages of that. So anyways, and we had internet cafes back then because it was still dial up. So a lot of kids didn't have internet, and so on the weekends, all the homies would meet up at these internet cafes. And I did it a couple weekends, but man, I remember just being so pissed off because first of all, I sucked at RuneScape, but it's because I didn't put the time and energy into it. But we'd go, you know, these internet. I just remember I'd just like I usually would play for like, I don't know, 30 minutes, maybe an hour. And then I would just watch my buddies. I just like stand over there and be like, that's pretty cool. Oh, dude, you're a level 99 wizard. You're a freaking level like 86, 70. I'm a level 22. I just sucked. And so I got fed up with it pretty quickly because I'm like, this is so boring being inside this internet cafe. So, in elementary at school, all the boys sit with the boys, the girls sit with the girls. And I remember very distinctly one day I'm sitting at this table. There's like probably 6 or 7 of us. And that was about the size of all the boys in my class. There was probably 13, 14 kids in my grade, and half were boys, half girls. And we're all kind of BSing. And then a few of the guys, they had a few acronyms that they used that I didn't even know what an acronym was then. And I'm like, I was like, what did you guys say? They're like,
TTYL,
whatever the frick they said. And I was like, what are you guys talking about? What is that? And they're like, oh, dude, it's from Runescape. And I was like, literally, I remember getting up from that table, walking over to the girls' table.
Bold
and I
move,
was like, dude, crazy. Like, yeah. I actually think about it, I'm like, that was wild. And I was like, hey, can I sit with you guys? And they're like, yeah, what's up? Sat down. I mean, and I had known these same girls, my entire childhood, right, for the last 10 years. And then I finished out the rest of this school year sitting with the girls at lunch. And so I became better friends with them. But then that's the year me and Elliot became friends, because he was a year younger than me. And he was the same way. He was not like, he wasn't into video games. I mean, maybe some FIFA, at home, like, or like 2K or whatever. Like, but it was like, we'd play for like 40 minutes and be like, all right, let's go.
Right.
Go outside. Yeah. And he put me to shame when it came to, Elliot was younger than me, but I looked up to him with how freaking damn good of a hunter he was. I mean, dude, that kid could catch anything, snakes, iguanas. He could see them. It was like to the kids, it was like an art form to be able to walk and spot green iguanas, because the green iguanas hide in green leafy, they're good at camouflage. Elliot could spot them. He'd be like, on my way to school this morning, there was a green iguana in that almond tree. Like, all right, bro.
And a lot of them on the island are like that gray brown kind of.
Yeah, the gray brown. And we would stay away from those ones. They were like, but we wanted to catch the green ones. Mm-hmm. The green ones were the, there's not as many, and they're way cooler because they're pretty.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was a distinctive turn from me not hanging out with my group of friends that I had been friends with my entire career in school.
Did you guys end up reconnecting at some point, or did that become like how did that kind of play out?
Class, those homies?
Yeah.
It was actually kind of weird, because that was 6th grade that I kind of stopped hanging out with them and started hanging out with Elliot, who's a younger classman, and then 7th grade I left to the U.S. So it was kind of a disconnect. And then I'd come back in the summers, and my birthday is in the summer. So we'd always kind of rekindle like that class. We'd all hang out for my birthday, whatever. And I would see the guys, we'd hang out. But, that was kind of yes, we all have rekindled. But yeah, no, it was at that kind of division point. It was definitely, never the same.
Yeah.
After that.
Well, and then not only that, but you also, I would imagine that once you got to the States too, you probably had to make like restart, whole new group of friends, and like that whole thing too. Yeah. Cause you went to play sports, right?
Yeah. I wanted to come back to the US so I could play sports other than soccer, cause I sucked at soccer. I was like just a chubby little fucking uncoordinated white kid. Yeah. And I was like, soccer is not my sport.
Which on the island, that's got to be a rough sport to be bad at.
Yeah, when it's the only sport on the island. Now there's tons, there's basketball, softball, baseball, you name it. But yeah, back then it was soccer. And I was like, well, it sucks. I hate soccer.
Yeah, I feel that.
I think it's super cool now to watch soccer, but, or just have like an appreciation for how skilled you actually to be a soccer player.
Dude, every time I travel, I have a better appreciation for soccer and like just how much of a like global game it is. And I remember my first time, like I never gave a fuck that I didn't play soccer, because I was like, well, I'll take that back. One of the most fun sports I've ever played is full contact soccer, which we resorted to playing because the playground duties took away our footballs and our flags because it was getting like too rough at recess and lunch. And so we were like, all right, we'll just play soccer, but we're going to play full contact. There is not a more fun sport in the world than full contact soccer because you don't have to be good. Yeah. You can just be running and like blow people off of the ball and like.
I used to give soccer a lot of shit.
Yeah.
Or football. It's gangster, dude. You can get trashed out there. I mean, you're not wearing pads and the
conditioning,
slide tackling people, like freaking. I mean, you're getting cleated. You wear shin guards for a real reason in soccer.
For sure. But yeah, the first time I was like confronted with how cool it is about like how big soccer is in the world was when I went to Jamaica with my dad and then my buddy's family for our like senior trip. Which we got some funny stories about that too. But I remember we were on the resort and it turned out in a very roundabout way, we ended up on a couples resort. And me and my buddy were like 18. And we're like,
that's where the whole group, like you guys had.
So it was me, my dad, his girlfriend, and then my buddy and his dad and stepmom. And so me and my buddy had to like bunk up together. We had to like share a room because it's a couples resort. You have to check in with the couple. And and we didn't know any of this was going down.
Do you think they thought you were gay?
Well, yes. And here's why. So we'll get to the soccer thing, but yeah. So what ended up happening was,
you are kind of fruity, but
so my dad hit me, fuck off. My dad hit me with, he hit me at one point, like it was like 6 months before the trip. He was like, hey man, what do you think about going to Jamaica for a senior trip? And I was like, I didn't even know I was getting a senior trip. So
yeah.
Super
and you
down.
also didn't know he was setting you up to have to play as a gay couple.
Right. So we get there. And he's like, hey, man, or I think we're on our way there. He's like, hey, man, the first night that we're there, Jared and his family aren't going to be there yet. And so you're going to stay at this like little boutique resort that's like a couple minutes down the road because you can't check in yet until they get here. And I was like, why not, dude? I'll just check into the room and whatever. He's like,
your dad knows.
So I didn't know it was a fucking couples resort at this point.
But he does.
So he goes, well, technically it's a couples resort and you have to be there with your couple.
That's so crazy he did that.
To check in. And I was like,
he did that.
Oh my God. So I ended up staying at this like pretty dicey joint. I was fucking starving. Like there was a little bar across the road. Wasn't going to like walk across the street and stuff. It was my first time out of the country besides like the resorts in Mexico.
Do you think your dad knew the whole time?
He did know the whole time.
Like he made a mistake.
No, he just knew. And he was like, well, they get a cool trip out of it. So like those two can like, be a couple for the week. Yeah. But so Jared finally gets there. We check in the next day.
And he was dating
Jackie.
Jackie. Okay.
Yeah.
So it was Jackie.
And they've been together for like 10 years now.
Yeah.
And so
at that point.
Yeah. No, at that point it was like pretty fresh still, like a couple years maybe.
Okay. Yeah.
And so Jared gets there, we check in, and we pieced out pretty much immediately. We're like out diving and we're like doing all of our stuff. And we come back at like 4 p.m. to get ready for dinner and all that stuff. And we come back in the room and the shades were drawn. They had turned on like smooth jazz on the thing, and they made a little like swan out of the towels, like origami, towel origami. They made a swan and had like rose petals on the bed and shit. And we looked at each other and we're like, fuck.
This is your buddy who is like in the military now.
Yeah.
He's been in the military for like 6 years or whatever.
Yeah. So he's actually deployed right now. He's on a battleship somewhere.
Nice.
In like Southeast Asia or something like that.
So have you seen the movie Couples Retreat?
No.
It's a good comedy. Gosh, I'm not gonna play the name game with you right now.
That's right.
Can't remember that. Vince Vaughn. He's one of the guys in great actor, right? But they go to like, it's not Jamaica, it's something like that, Trinidad and Tobago or something, on a couples retreat to fix all their marriages or whatever. And a couple of the guys are like, there's like, not allowed to leave the resort because you're supposed to stay there for this couples retreat.
Right.
Down the beach, there's the singles resort, and a couple of they like sneak out and get to So that's kind of what I envisioned. Like you guys are like, gosh, we got to break out of the couples resort.
So we did. We did.
The singles resort.
But what was dope about it though was like, I think that so many of the workers there were used to just like not really being involved with the guests and stuff. Because on a couples resort, all the guests are like so focused on each other, and everything's kind of set up to be like
hey
these
guys,
little couples dates.
What should we do?
Bro, exactly. And him and I, like,
Did they figure out that you were like,
yeah, they knew immediately.
Okay.
And they, yeah, they knew immediately. And there was another wedding that was happening. I don't know if they were
it's
staying.
probably also like an 18 and up resort.
Exactly.
Right? Okay.
Yeah. And so there was a wedding that was happening, where I don't know if they were doing it on the resort or they were staying on the resort. So there was like some single people and stuff. But these workers were like, they were stoked because they're like, bro, nobody ever pays attention to us because they're always doing like honeymoons or whatever. And so we made friends with like couple bartenders at like these little bars and the breakfast stuff, and we were chilling one day, and the people at the resort, that their job is to like make sure the vibes are good, right? So like they'll come over to cornhole and like get everybody stoked and do this and that.
Riz check.
Yeah, they were all on like their lunch break or something, and they were playing a game of soccer. And they're like, hey bro, you guys want to jump in? We're gonna play for like the next hour or so. And I was like watching what was going down, barefoot, and like,
oh yeah,
dude, they would have toasted the fuck out of our college soccer team, and they're just like some barefoot dudes in polos like tearing it up. And I remember watching Jared jump in there, and he played soccer. He was like a high school starter for a couple of years, and I was like,
nope, I'm out.
I know where my spot is, and I'm not going to be the white
Jared,
boy.
Maintain.
Yeah, he played great.
Balled.
Yeah, he played great. And his dad like traveled internationally and stuff. So he had like the worldly appreciation for soccer even when we were growing up in Boise. But I remember like sitting in the grass just watching them do their thing and being like, okay, now I see where it might be like pretty cool to be good at soccer, because it'd be a great way to meet people and stuff while you're overseas, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a trip.
It's what's super cool. So down in Belize, you know, the island is 30,000 people. So fairly small. And, but what's been so cool to see down there now is the community is so like they're thriving on activity. The community wants to be active like crazy. And they, close to where Elliot grew up, there was a soccer field, and we would play soccer there all the time. And it was just, you know, basically like kind of in the middle of nowhere. And now the city or the town council, they built a huge stadium. I mean,
shit.
Like concrete seating, like it's a legit stadium, like, you know, pay to enter, just depending on the events, but like it's all gated, like the whole thing.
Nice.
And there's a ton of teams that are just local teams. Like all the business owners, not all businesses, but a lot of the business, they just form teams.
Nice.
You know, like there's
so it's like a rec league kind of thing.
Dude, yeah, but it's massive. Like there's Tropic Air. There's you know, tons of businesses. Ramones, they all have soccer teams.
That's so sick.
And I went and watched Elliot. He's like, dude, I got a team. I have my own team. You want to come watch? I'm like, yeah, dude. So I went at 10 o'clock at night when his game started. And it's like a huge thing. I'm like, this is so freaking sweet.
Big stadium lights and the whole thing.
Big stadium lights, the whole huge stadium.
So
lights.
sick.
Yeah.
Was that your guys' first stadium?
Yeah, on the island. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
What was
it's
it?
the only one.
What was it growing up like that? Because like, I think it's cool that you were able to grow up on the island and then spend summers in Montana. But both of those are like, I mean, fairly small. You know,
just fairly small places.
Yeah.
I mean,
fairly, population wise. And so like, how did your worldview change as you were like growing up on the island and then moving to Billings, and now that you've traveled more and all that kind of stuff?
Well, I would say that my worldview never changed. Growing up on that tiny little island in the middle of the Caribbean, Central America, is probably the most vast, huge horizon of different views, different lifestyles. It's a melting pot. First of all, just the country itself is a melting pot of culture. So you have, you've got a ton of British people there because it used to be a British colony. You have a ton of American expats. You have Hispanic, Creole people, a very large Chinese base, a huge Lebanese population. So there's the country itself holds so many different cultures. There's even a lot of East Indians there, and then of course the Mayans, but then living on the island itself, it's a major tourist destination. I mean, that's its main producer for income, so you're meeting people from all across the world. I mean, all across the world. So I didn't realize that. And then on top of that, my dad is in the hotel business. So I'm growing up around a hotel. So I'm definitely seeing all these people from all across the world.
Right. And his business partners were also like from different places.
No, all his business partners were from Montana.
Really? Mm-hmm. So Peter and some of those guys didn't come in until later.
Yeah, those are just way later, just like investors in
gotcha.
In condo developments and stuff.
Gotcha.
Like that.
So most
but
of
the original group, it was the Montana 5. There was 5 of them. My dad moved to Belize. He got those other 4 buddies to come in, investment wise, and yeah, so it was the Montana group.
Yeah. So what was that exposure like to people when you were growing up?
So, I mean, the exposure, and then I'll touch on how moving back to Montana was, yes, it was so different, but then that's moving back to Montana is that's what made me realize how different of an upbringing I had. Right. But Belize is such a unique place. It's an English speaking country. So, obviously I had no problem understanding everything that's going on around me because everyone speaks English, but, you have the richest of the rich that live there. You have the poorest of the poor that live there. But like the Kava bars, everyone is on the same playing field. Seems like, the locals eat and drink at the same bars and restaurants that the tourists do. They interact with people the same as anyone else would. So I had this, I was taught to treat all people alike, it never was I wasn't even taught that. That's just the lifestyle it was. Mm-hmm. And it's such a small place that you are so commonly around so many different types of people. You have people that are, that just have their vacation homes in Belize, right? So, the people that just have a $500,000 to $1 million, $1 million, $2 million home, those people have a lot of money and they bring a different, set of values to life that I didn't realize I was learning at a young age. And, but then the amount of values that I was learning from hanging out with some of my best friends that, they lived above the lagoon in, a tiny little OSB box, and in the most humblest of beginnings. And I hung out there all the time and didn't think twice about it, so in the same day I'd be, above a lagoon where my buddy had to lay 2x6s down when it was raining heavy to get to his house, or else your feet are covered in mud. And then you could be in $1 million house talking to someone that's a client of my dad's or a friend of my dad's in the same day,
right?
Just like it was nothing. So it definitely just, that's, and to speak more to that is, you had, Belize is a non-extraditional state, right? Country. So you've got people that like are running from the U.S. government, running from the U.S., the IRS, you name it. I'm like, I've met Ponzi scheme leaders that like moved to Belize, and then that same guy that I knew, the U.S. Marshals. Now, while it's a how do you say that freaking word?
Extradition.
Yeah. Non-extraditional. And if the U.S. Marshals come down, the country of Belize is like, yeah, go ahead, go get your guy. We don't care, man.
Yeah.
So I watched a dude get pulled out by the U.S. Marshals at one of my dad's condo. I'm like, whoa! Like, damn. Everyone's like, what's happening? Oh, he was a leader of
right after you get done chasing crocs and shit.
Yeah, exactly. So just wild story. John McAfee. John McAfee bought 2 condos from my dad and then bought a house freaking a mile up the beach from one of my dad's condo developments. Like, those are the kind of people that come to Belize. And then also, the vast majority are great people, but you get those crazy wild stories of, these people that move to Belize. For instance, the first hotel that my dad built, it was a 12 room hotel called Coconuts. I was born in this hotel, 1995. And I think they sold that hotel in 2001. So I was 6. And I can't remember the guy's name. We'll have to look it up. But he bought, so I go with my dad. He's like, all right, we're headed to Coconuts. This guy's buying the hotel. I don't even know if he told me that much. I just knew I was going along with my dad today. Yeah. And it's Saturday. It was a Saturday because I didn't have any school. And walk into my dad's old office, and now this new guy's sitting in my dad's seat, my dad's chair. And I just remember him being so grateful. He was so stoked. He's like, it was, his first purchase in Belize. He's like, man, I'm buying this little like kind of boutique resort. I remember this guy, he had a tank top on, and he had a Texas draw. He was from Texas originally, so big Texas accent. And he had this gold chain on with a skull and crossbones and 2 red ruby eyes as the eyes, diamonds in the eye sockets. And he pulls out this purple velvet bag, and he pulls out 5 more of these medallions, and looks at, all 5 partners were there for the sale, and throws a medallion to each one of the partners. And he's like, guys, thank you. Like, this is kind of like commencing this business deal, right? I'm like, damn, I just remember being infatuated. I'm like, it's like a pirate scene going on.
Hell yeah.
Right there. And, having this conversation with my dad 20 years later, he's like, yeah, so that guy, was evading U.S. taxes. He didn't know this at that time, but my dad found out later. He had evaded like maybe $400,000, $500,000 worth of taxes in the U.S. I'm pretty sure he bought the resort for like $550.
I was gonna say that'll get you the down payment for the resort.
Yeah. No, he paid cash. Yeah. And he always flew the pirate flag. And then he had a house in Mexico, and same thing at that house in Mexico. He flew the pirate flag, and he had health complications a few years back and passed away. But those are the kind of guys that roll through Belize, which is just crazy. But then moving back to the U.S., moving back to Montana, which as a kid, I'd spend the summers in Montana. I'd hang out on the ranch with my grandfather, driving semis, and in the grain elevators, cleaning out the grain, and the barley, and itchy as hell. But anyways, I moved back here, and I go to school, 7th grade, 8th grade. I was at a small private Christian school for middle school, and then for high school, I switched over to the big public school here, senior high. Shout out Bronx, baby. But so then, like, coming to school up here, I remember watching everybody. Everyone was like, I don't know, whether they were in relationships or super involved in their sports or whatever it was. I could tell that it felt very narrow-minded,
like sheltered almost. Like
sheltered. Like, I just remember, I don't know what it was. I just remember being like, man, there's something different about me than a lot of my peers. And for the most part, they only knew most people in Billings, Montana growing up, they've never left Billings, Montana, right. Or if they have, it's just in the close,
they came from Bozeman or Missoula.
Whatever. Right. It's like, and even if you travel and even if you're from Montana and you travel a lot, you're not going to see, you don't naturally just see that. You're not exposed to that kind of. You can be 12 years old and be with your dad hanging out at any bar in Belize, for instance. Right. And it's completely socially acceptable.
Which means that your crowd is a lot different too, because you're around your dad's buddies.
Yeah,
and
10 years old, 11 years old. I'm at a bar every weekend, in the most wholesome of ways, but then you're also exposed to all those adults, stuff. All the bar stuff. I mean, it just happens, right? So, but then I'm up here and I'm like, whoa, like, and maybe it's not that people were narrow-minded necessarily, but it's just they hadn't been exposed to anything else, and I'd been exposed to so much at a young age that I was like, I looked at life so much differently, I don't think I knew how to how to quite put my finger on that.
Right.
You know, in high school, I just knew I was different, and I didn't.
Was that a lonely feeling, or was it like processing?
No,
that?
because I had great friends, and like, I mean, some of the, you know, same homies that were homies now.
Yeah.
I was always able to, you know, make friends. So no, it wasn't a lonely thing. It was just an observation I was able to have, like, damn, like, you know.
I think that comes down to perspective. And I think that's one of the things that I love the most about travel is, and I didn't realize it until the first time that, I think Hawaii was the first time I really noticed it. I was 16 and went on a family trip with my girlfriend at the time. And it was the first time that I really felt like a different vibe of a place, because like when you go, the only places I'd gone before that were like road trips to places for travel basketball, or we went to like, Mexico when I was like 12 with my mom and that kind of stuff. But that was the first time where I remember getting back on the plane, and we had been around, we stayed like close to the North Shore, so it was very chill, and like, you know, it wasn't super touristy there. And I remember getting back on the plane and being like, everyone is so fucking tightly wound right now. Like,
yeah,
you could feel it. Like you could just feel it. And it was the first time that I was like, oh, there are places where people live completely different, and you can take these little like lessons from each place and try to like apply it to your life, or apply it to, you know, your worldview or something like that.
That's a good way of putting it. Like, yes, for me growing up on an island, that island state of mind, very, as you know, I roll up late to, you know, anything that's not like a business meeting that I'll be on time to that. But if it's like, you know, the homies, whatever, we have something planned, you know, I'm rolling in 20 minutes late, and I'm totally cool with it. I'm like,
you've rubbed off on me in that way.
You do that now too.
I know.
But you know, what's funny about that is my dad is not that way, but he's not originally from Belize. He spent the first 31 years in the US.
And being a trucker, which I'd imagine that level of logistics, you're probably like...
I mean, the way he grew up on a ranch that was a hard working ranch that, you know, everything counted, you know, on getting shit done in a timely fashion. So yeah, that's that. Yeah, I don't know. I think that was, I kind of always had this like no fear through high school. And I think that came from living in Belize, seeing so many different walks of life, and seeing how many different walks of life. So how many different kind of characters that you could become. I saw so many different avatars at a young age that in high school up here, I was never just one person. I was always a ton of different characters.
Yeah, you don't fit into like the jock or the stoner or the nerd
or the cowboy or like my cousins, dude. My cousins on my dad's side, phenomenal kids, but dude, they are cowboys. They were you know, they were born on you know, outside of Harlow, Montana. Grew up in Harlow, like they know exactly, you know, who they are. They, you know, they wear the belt buckles and boots and cowboy hats, and they rock it.
Yeah.
But it's kind of a singular, you know, lifestyle.
Right.
And they're phenomenal guys, and they crush that lifestyle. But I was around so many different characters that I never felt like this is who I am. I'm a jock or a cowboy or a motocross guy. My eyes were so open wide to all these different walks of life.
I think that's so freeing too. Like I remember,
it can be, but it's not when you don't know it. You don't know how to control it.
True. That's what I was gonna get to. I guess we'll just jump right to it.
It can make you feel the most loneliest in the app. You want to talk about lonely? Was when I you know, I don't know, 20, 21, when I realized all those things. Dude, there was a time where I was like, man, I almost got, I was lost, angry, you know, that young man trying to going through it.
Yeah.
I remember thinking, man, it'd be so much simpler if I just was a freaking cowboy like my cousins, or if I was a, you know, whatever.
Like had a clear path.
Had a clear path of like who I am. Then I realized, you know, but being able to go through that and really like sit on it and realize, hey, there's 100 different versions of me. But close your eyes, envision all those 100 different yous, all the different lives that you live, and then reduce it back to that singular person. It's like, hey, you are all those people. And just, it's understanding that was huge for me when I finally came to that realization. Because I mean, the who am I question is a big question for all, young people growing up anyways. Right. Or
kind of always,
maybe at all ages. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, you don't necessarily, not all people figure that out right away. And that's a big one. Right. So then when you're like, man, I'm kind of good at a lot of different things, and I kind of like a lot of different things. Like I like ranching with my grandpa, and I like playing football. I like being a businessman with my dad, and I, all these. It's like, fuck, who am I? What path am I going down?
Yeah.
So when I was able to realize that it's okay to kind of embody a little bit of all of that, if that's who you are. If that's how, it's like, that's how I grew up. Like right. I grew up around all different walks of life. So I'm able to get on the same wavelength with so many different kinds of people because I grew up around so many different kinds of people.
Yeah. That's there's a name for that, like that struggle, and it's called the Curse of Competence. And I love that. I mean, I've faced a similar thing when I was growing up, and not because I had seen so much different perspective, but because I was interested in so many different things and like got along with so many different kinds of people. But the Curse of Competence is an idea that there is two sides of the coin. The one side that you hear a lot of people that are really struggling, like complain about is, I'm only good at one thing and it sucks because like, I wish that I was better at more, or, like I'm pinholed, like I'm really good at being a framer, and like, I'm just going to be a framer, and it's a very clear path, but it's like, your options outside of being a framer might be limited. So if you can find that you're a great framer and you just figure that out, great. But you've just got this one path that's kind of like your whole thing. There's something about that once you find it, it's very peaceful because it's like, hey, I just got my thing. And a lot of times you'll see those guys be super happy, great marriage. They've got their nice truck and their boat. When
you have that one thing, you can hone in on that. Like if you're
bingo,
if you're a rancher,
yep.
Dude, I am a rancher.
Exactly.
You hone in on that every day, day in and day out. And if you're a carpenter, if you're, whatever profession you're I am an accountant, or you can hone in on that personality, on that skill set.
Yeah. That's where the curse comes in. So the other side of that coin is like, if you are all of those things, or if you could be all of those things, where that curse of competence comes in is like, if you're one of the people that like is interested in a lot of shit and you tend to be good at whatever you try, right? If you are really good at numbers,
or necessarily just decent, where you're like good enough.
Exactly. Where you could pursue it.
Yeah.
So if you're good enough at football that you can play in college, but you're also like pretty savvy and you could go into real estate if you wanted to, and you've also like are pretty good at music, and like there might be something there. What becomes tricky about that is you've got so many options on the table that you have like it or not, the curse of like, I don't know which one to choose, because all of these could be great paths.
Yeah.
And I could be good enough to be like serviceable in any of these, but I don't have the direction to figure out like, who am I and which one to pick?
Yep.
Which sounds like a really funny problem for people, but it is. It's tricky.
And how do you become passionate about something? Time in, time out. I feel like you earn the passion, right? Like because you become good at something after doing it for dedicating, 5 years, 10 years to it.
Say more about that, about the work and the time you're putting into it, like being how you find it. Cause I've had a couple things where I'm like, the first time I tried, I'm like, oh, this might be the one.
So to me, I think that, okay, for me, for instance, I've never just felt like super passionate right away about something.
Okay.
I became passionate for MMA after realizing I was good at it after training for said periods of time. It's like you put in the hard work and you keep going back to it. and you get good, to me, that's how, once you get good at something, then I became passionate about it. I mean, it might be different for some people, right?
Yeah, that's fair.
But so point being is that if you grew up, you know, one way, and you've been kind of honing that in, then you can become passionate about it. You know, if you grew up on a ranch your whole life, I mean, my dad grew up on a ranch his whole life, and he wanted nothing but to get out of it, right?
Right.
But a lot of people grow up on a ranch, for instance, and then they can hone in who they are in that lifestyle, and you become passionate for it because you've been around it so long and you've learned the ins and outs of the whole thing that it becomes an art.
Right.
It becomes an art form. You know, anything that you put enough time into the details, into the weeds of it to understand it, then it becomes an art form, which, you know, is your passion.
Do you think you have to be good at something to be passionate about it?
No, I don't think you have to be good at it to be passionate about it. But for me, it's like, unless I put time in and dedication to it, that's the only way I become passionate about it, is because I learn to love it, because I'm not just naturally great at it, and it takes me putting in, you know, 5 years of work to become great at it, which then to me turns into passion.
Yeah, I think that's also one of those tricky things about that Curse of Competence thing, is like, if there's not something that pulls at you right away, then just thinking about spending the kind of time that it might take to get passionate about something, right? Like you can spend, so like, I mean, you had a pretty extensive MMA career, but I mean, who would have said choosing that versus choosing CrossFit? You know what I'm saying? Like, if you're at the beginning and those two start as equals, and it's just like, well, I have to commit to one of these for a long time to become passionate about it, or to become great enough to be passionate about it. Like, I feel like that's a really hard thing to choose. If it's like, hey, whatever I spend the next little while at, I'm going to get good at it and I'm going to fall in love with it. But how do you choose from that ground floor?
I think you also go, like CrossFit takes so much more work for me to be good at. Fighting, MMA came intuitively. Like I was naturally good at it. And when I realized I was naturally good at it, then I was like, oh, let's hone in on my skills and see how good I can be. That's where the passion came from me, was figuring out how good I could be.
Yeah.
But I had some natural ability. So, which then gave me the want to push there.
I think the feedback loop is super helpful too, where like, you know, there's so many different kinds of feedback that you can get from stuff, right? It's like you get the personal satisfaction of like, oh wow, I seem to be picking this up really quick and I'm getting a lot of these like really quick wins and blah, blah, blah. But then there's also other ones where like, you know, if you're going down the road of being like a CPA or an accountant or something like that, a lot of the wins that you have are probably going to be like doing well on tests, you know, not having to study as hard as other people might to like pass your exams and do all of that kind of stuff. But a lot of your wins are like kind of in silent, they're kind of in private, they're kind of like, you know, whatever. Yeah. Whereas if you, let's say, go the MMA route like you did, a lot of your success and a lot of your feedback loop is very public, right? You go and you win your first fight, you go and you win a handful of fights and you get a viral knockout, or, you know, all of this stuff. I think that some things have like built-in feedback loops where if you are kind of starting at ground zero with a lot of those things, if you choose something where you've got a community where people are hyping you up, or you've got fans, or you've got something that's in the public eye, I think that sometimes those things are easier to get a passion for because there's more feedback, right? Yeah. As an artist, you know, if people are hyping up your paintings, it's a lot easier to keep painting.
Yeah, for sure.
You know?
Yeah.
So how does that apply now? Because I mean, I don't think that you've necessarily stopped adding pursuits. I mean, even the last couple of weeks, we were on the phone and you're like, dude, there's still so much more. Like, this is what I want to be doing with my life and blah, 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 blah. So like, how do you approach that now where you still got that same kind of like,
it is massively different, you know? Yeah. If you're a fighter, for instance, it's that you get that gratification of going out and fighting, you know, everyone's watching you, all your boys are there, all your family's there. You know, win or lose is super exciting. You know, you're getting that gratification. Then you go into business, and it's, the new baby syndrome is the first, year or so, where everyone's like, dude, that's so cool. You got a business going. Oh, that's, great, whatever, which is not ever why I did it. But so now it's been, for instance, I don't know, Kava Bar, for instance, it's been 5 years. Yeah, I don't get those exciting wins. That struggle, that can be a struggle, to be in it for the long run. Because business is that, just being in it for the long run. That's why for me, man, you start to love the small wins, the little things, watching a team start to work well together. You build those, because you need to have wins. Like, you need to have wins to continue. Like, if you're just taking what feels like L's, it's just like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? So yeah, it's important to find little wins throughout the, always throughout the week. I find, just seeing new people walk into the business, I still get excited about that. I'm like, dang, like that's a new person I've never seen in the Kava Bar trying kava. Yeah. And that's exciting to me. But they're little wins. And, but I recognize those, to keep me fed.
Yeah. That's so tough.
It doesn't really, if that's all I had to live off of, I would jump off the rims. So, I have to live in I'm always looking for, growth mindset partners, in employees, partners, friends, whatever, because I building something that works. So like, that's why I want to expand and open up more Kava bars. That's where I get that's where I have fun, and that's where the W's come from me, is like, getting together a new team, building a new Kava bar, getting that up and running. I have to have that.
Yeah. Is that, when you do get those wins, are you able to like feel them when they happen? Or, I struggle a lot with when I get to a goal that I've set, or get to a moment that I said would be special, or that I would hope would be special, and it is a moment of accomplishment. A lot of times I find myself like feeling like I missed that moment even when I'm in it. Like, it doesn't feel like I can be present for it, or doesn't feel like I can like feel the celebration as it's happening. Yeah. And I'm curious if you struggle with that same thing.
Yeah, 100%. It's just like, that's why I think the most fun part of business is the new side of things. When you're looking for new locations, looking for a new team, that fun and excitement of like stringing the deal together, right? The art of the deal, the art of putting it all together. That's fun to me. And then once you get it up and running and it's going, that's monotonous to me, and not, I like to see it work. I like to see it continuously build, but then that's where you get the small wins. So yeah, it's funny how, and it's interesting to, start a business that you start because maybe you were passionate, or you thought it was super cool. And then you finally get this machine up and running, and you're like, you almost don't even, you're like, you got to like go back to why you started it. Yeah. You're like, oh, this is why I loved it. It just, because sometimes it does feel like it just becomes a job, and you got to get out of that. Yeah. I think, or else it'll just drown you.
Yeah. And I think you almost have to, like, sometimes, even if you fall out of love, or your passion fizzles out, or like is dimmed from what you originally started as, I think sometimes it's like falling in love with different parts of what you're creating.
Yes.
Like the passion that you had originally might be different than the stuff that you enjoy now, which is like the art of deal making and team building and doing all that stuff. Chances are, like, you probably weren't even far enough along to start even having a relationship with any of that shit yet. at the beginning, but now it's like you can fall in love with the expansion part and with the new people and the new teams. And I think that sometimes like you might just have to shift what you're getting excited about, or maybe pay more attention to different things.
Yeah, I think that's the living in the growth mindset, living in it's kind of the like just being in the gym. You can work out for 10 years and then you stop for 2 months and it's all gone. It's all done. You're like, you're pretty much out of shape and it'll go quickly.
Yeah.
So you have to keep on feeding the gym, feeding that energy to stay in shape, to get better. You're constantly pushing to get better, but if you stop at any time, you will become stagnant and start to decline.
Right.
So that's how it works for me in business. I have to keep going and attacking new things, or else I'm going to become stagnant and I'm going to go down.
Yeah. I'm curious, like you've said a lot about that, the growth mindset and just like the topic of growth. And I'm curious, knowing you as a person, it seems like you're always looking for new things to like not just to add to your belt, and like ways to grow, whether it's in business or in fitness or in life experience and stuff like that. And like, I'm curious, like, how would you describe your relationship with personal growth and personal development and that kind of stuff?
It's easily the most important thing in my life. And that's in growth in all areas, growth in my, physical ability, my mental ability, my spiritual ability. All of those things are super important to me. I don't want to be, are we getting feedback?
Yeah. And we're back, everybody. Brief pause in the show for a little pee break. But before we left, we were talking about your relationship with growth and like growth mindset as a person.
Man, growing up around a lot, I was blessed. I was super blessed to grow up around a lot of business people, a lot of different business people, bar owners, restaurant owners, hoteliers, high-end managers, you name it. And one thing I noticed a lot of, and a lot of, no matter what the profession was, property management, real estate, these people, it's not everybody, for sure, not everybody that I grew up around, but a lot. And probably specifically like my father and his group of friends in the business world. A lot of phenomenal business people, a lot of super smart guys, a lot of super successful guys. But a lot of them are very linear. And I didn't know that at the time, right? But being able to reflect on that the older I got was very powerful to me. I can remember when I was, my mom and my dad and I would go on a family vacation. That didn't happen very often, but maybe once a year or so. And we'd only go for like 3 days, maybe 3-4 days. We'd go up to Mexico, go to a water park, go to Tulum, go to Playa del Carmen, something. And I remember that my dad, one day, 12 hours into the trip, 24 hours into the trip, he'd get a phone call and he'd be so mad. Man, I can't leave, I can't leave for 1 fucking day, 2 days. And, they're calling me, everything's going to shit. But that's the system that he created. When he's there, he's El Capitan, and it's like everything runs through him. He never, it was hard for him to put others into power positions, and teach them how to run things. Wasn't there. So it made him a very, very good captain of the ship when it came to the business, but he had to be the captain. He had to be there. And that took away from, his ability to, spend time on his relationship with my mom, his physical health, his relationship with me, in just being a dad. He's a phenomenal provider, but I watched a lot of those guys. They're all very similar that ran in his circle. Great businessmen, did really good job at making money, but all these other areas in their lives were lacking. All of them have been divorced. All of them, don't necessarily. A lot of these guys don't have good relationships with their children, and they're kind of. I've noticed they're kind of. I don't know if arrogance is the right word, but it's like. I don't know.
They like dissociated from it a little bit.
Kind of maybe dissociated from it. They don't, because they never spend any time reflecting on why things are the way they are. It's just like, it just is what it is.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? Just is what it is. And that's always been so interesting to me. And it's because of that, it's made me never want to be that way. I want to be everything that they are in business, but I want to be everything that the greatest athletes of all time were, the greatest philosophers of all time. It's like I want to take a piece of it all and continue and understanding that never ends. You're never going to reach that goal. You're never going to be, the best in your best physical shape, because you can always, you have to continuously train, or else you lose it. And I think that's how it's easy to look at it in the physical way, just because you see results when you work out and you see them fade, visually, when you stop. But it's the same thing mentally, spiritually, whatever that is for you. So that's why the growth mindset is so important to me. I want to cultivate my friendships. I want to grow those friendships. I want to, I don't know why, it's fulfilling. It's fulfilling to me. It's so interesting to me. I love the thought of expanding, pushing our body to its limits, our soul to its limits. I want to see what kind of athlete I can be, so I continuously train, even though I'm not in a sport anymore. I don't put enough time into reading books, but I still read books, and I attempt to journal and I attempt to write, because I don't want to just be a consumer of books. I also want to be a writer. I don't have an interest in wanting to write a book, but I want to expand on that ability to also be a producer, in literature, just to grow that. I mean, that's something you have to work at. It's not easy to write. It's not easy to journal how your week went. That's a hard thing to do.
Yeah.
It's fascinating to me that that you have the ability to shape yourself into whatever you want. And I don't want to leave anything on the table.
Yeah.
I don't want to ever be like, man, I could have, the what if. I don't want to leave anything out on the table. I want to know that I tried everything.
Yeah, dude. I'm with you. I think that's such an interesting thing too, because I think in our culture so often it's baked into our DNA to be maybe like known or recognized, or like to try to like adopt our profession as our personality or as who we are or something like that. Because like, I mean, so many times when you introduce yourself to somebody, hey, what's up, man? I'm Drew. What's your name? Blah, blah, blah. Oh, cool. What do you do? And we're not talking about what do you do as a person? What do you do in your free time? What feeds your soul? What feeds you as a person? Nobody's going to answer that question and be like, well,
They're asking like the one thing that defines you.
Exactly. I
own a marketing company.
And we define and we default to our professions.
Yeah.
And what I find,
I own a small construction company. That's always my way out of that question.
Right. And so that's such an interesting thing though, because when you're talking about your dad's buddies, right? It's like they've aligned so many things in their life to be the hotel owner or the restaurateur or the developer or whatever that is. And when they get outside of that box, like what's left, right? Like you can go and you can sip margaritas on a beach for 12 hours and then somebody calls you and then
it's respectable because you become very good at that thing, right?
Absolutely.
But and that's where it kind of comes back to, the who am I question. It's like it seems so much here we go. It seems so much easier because it's linear, right? So you can accomplish that so much quicker maybe, or
all of your energy's in it.
But I don't want easy. I don't want, I want to make things, I always choose the harder path. Even if it takes me another 20 years.
Does that come down to, do you think that fulfillment is baked somewhere in there?
What do you mean?
Like I would imagine that the ability to go and dedicate all of your time and energy into, let's take our businesses, for example. If I were to take all of my time and energy and just put it into the marketing company, chances are I would be a lot further than if I was also...
You'd be making a lot more money. You'd have a lot more clients.
Exactly. So if I wasn't training jujitsu, if I wasn't making an attempt to travel, if I wasn't in a relationship, if I wasn't trying to be a good friend, if I there's all of this other stuff that if I wasn't podcasting, like all of this stuff. And so, Very true. I think that there is something to be said about that. But I find so much fulfillment in my life from doing all of the other shit that I wouldn't get just by seeing my marketing company grow.
Yes.
Like the progress that I see in my physical health, my mental health, my friendships, all of that other stuff.
It's definitely the fulfillment. It has to be. You explain that. Yeah. That's definitely the case.
I'm curious what the cost, like if you were to ask some of those guys, and maybe you would know since obviously you spent some time around them, but I'm curious if you would ask a lot of those guys, like looking back, what they would say, right? Like, was this a fulfilling path for you? Would you have set your career?
Answer that.
You just think it's like one track?
They wouldn't know how to answer it.
Interesting.
The questions you're asking and that we're talking about, they've never explored that. Some will come to that realization, when they're old and, man, I wish I would have spent more time with my kids, or wish I would have done that. That does happen, right? But these questions, they wouldn't understand them.
Do you think that when do you think you started asking yourself some of those questions?
When I was 18 years old and I called my dad, and I was actually still 17, graduated school, and I was like, Dad, what's up, dude? I'm ready to roll. Like, what's your plan for me? What are we doing? Like, and he's like, I was so stoked to be out of high school, so stoked to go attack the world, go attack business. I call my dad, I go, yo, what's your plan? Like, I'm thinking this dude's got a plan for me. But I don't know. I was like, what do you mean you don't know? What should I do? You should go to the Bakken and make money because the boom is happening right now. Or you should join the military. And I was like, what?
Here he is sitting on at this point, he's probably got Grand Caribe, and he's done a lot of big developments.
Yeah, he was doing a ton of developments at the time. And that was 2013. He might have actually been kind of on a hiatus. Grand Caribe was already built. He was kind of like semi-retired at that time.
Okay.
Taking it. Yeah, he took 6 years off. And now go to the Bakken, make money. You could go make $100,000 right away. At that time, it was booming. that makes sense if we would have had a conversation about why, go to the Bakken, make a bunch of money. You can take that money, you can invest down here in Belize, start building, start building your real estate, or, whatever that is, or buying properties in Montana and starting a business and putting that money towards your side hustle, or join the military. Not because you're planning on, going to 4 years of the military and then needing a job, but because the reason why he recommended it was because you're going to go learn how to be a man. Mm-hmm. You're going to go do some serious growing up. And now looking back at it, I'm like, it also create that much better of a leader, right? Which I'm constantly trying to hone in on my leadership skills and be a better leader. But we never had those conversations because, frankly, he didn't have the ability to get into depth into why, mm-hmm. Which is, because my dad he's just an action guy, he's a doer, which is taking him to very high places. But I'm like, I want to reflect and know ins and outs and why we're doing what we're doing. And then, be an action guy, but then talk about it,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's funny too. We've talked a lot about how you and I have come to a lot of the same places in life, or had a lot of the same outlook on things or mindsets. Yeah. But come from such different backgrounds, right? Oh, yeah. And so I think it's interesting because when I meet somebody who is focused on growth, it always you can see that spark in their eye. And sometimes it's about a specific thing that they're passionate about, right? Like talking to a musician about music. They light up, you can tell right away in that conversation, that's their thing. But when I get a chance to talk to people who are just fascinated with becoming the best version of themselves, but also you said maximizing, not leaving anything on the table, right? Maximizing your life experience, maximizing your capabilities. I get so excited about that because when I'm talking to one of those people, the fact that they're open to oh yeah, I haven't tried scuba diving. That's got to be a cool pursuit. What are the levels of that? What can you do with that? How do you start it? And it's so exciting because it's this is a person that I can learn from the things that they've done, that they've been dude, this was so rewarding. It was fulfilling. You've got to try jiu-jitsu. Cool. I'll add that to the list of things I should do. But it's been so cool because even between you and I, there's stuff that we can bounce off of each other where it's hey dude, I just went and got my open water diving thing. You've got to get down here and do it.
Yep.
There's so much stuff like that. And I feel it's rare to find people who are still open to the fact that there is so much out there and that you can still do it. Cause I think that most people start with this, like when we're kids, right? Very, very infrequently do you find a kid who's yeah, I want to, work construction my whole life, or I want to be a mid-level manager at a bank my whole life, or I want to do whatever. But somewhere down the line, and I think it's out of necessity, it's well, you've got to pay your bills and you've got to do this and you've got to do that.
You go down that path and then you're
dude,
30 years later and you're well, I never did it.
But you have
anything else.
But there's a trade-off. There's the trade-off of I have to do this to survive. I have to do this to provide X, Y, and Z. But as that trade-off, I know that I can't explore all of these other things that could be in my capability because I just don't have enough time. Right? Or I have to make these resources.
But you tell yourself you have to.
Right. It's self-imposed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sure, if you, knock up your girlfriend, a year out of high school and, you're holy God, I've got a kid coming on the way and I got, but that's also self-imposed where well, I got to do things this way now because I have a kid. Not necessarily.
Right.
A lot of, there's a lot of entrepreneurs, or whatever, different lifestyles that you could live instead of putting yourself in that box.
Yeah. I think the more that I think about entrepreneurship, the more when that word gets so gross sometimes because there's so many
I try not even about
fucking gurus out here that are making that word disgusting. But when I think about anybody who's just like forging their own path, regardless of what that is, whether that's in business or in art or in whatever, I really think that that is the best avenue to be able to explore like the width that life can be, because you've got all this stuff where like you've got a little bit more control over your time in some ways, and you've got some stuff like that, but you're also learning so much about yourself through whatever endeavor you're doing. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
the amount of stuff, like the amount of things that you'll learn about yourself when you're going through your own trials and tribulations, when all of your cards are on the table and not somebody else's, and like all of that stuff. I just think there's so many more lessons that are baked into that. And back to that momentum conversation, it's like, okay, where else can I continue learning about myself? Where else can I get better?
That's a great way to, okay. So it's just like I was telling you about this earlier today, but I was talking to my cousin, one of my cousin's friends, and hold on, I got a train of thought here.
Yeah. Okay. So we were talking about is your cousin's buddy, and we were talking about the fact that like being in some kind of thing where you're forging your own path allows you to learn more about yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Like learning about yourself while you try new things. Okay, so let's say you don't know what you're going to do when you graduate high school. Okay. And all the kids that do know, they're like, I'm going to be a doctor. Okay. You studied for the ACT, you go to college, you're going to freaking do this 4 years here, this 4 years here, these 2 years residency here, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Or a lawyer, whatever it is. But for the kid that doesn't know what he's going to do, and it's like, well, you don't know what you're going to do. So, you know, your parents tell you, you need to go to college, you know, you can figure it out, go to college. Like, so you have all this pressure, everyone else, all your other peers going to college. So you go to college and you're trying to figure it out. Well, how are you going to learn about yourself? How are you going to learn about yourself, what you truly want, what you truly love, when you are being force-fed an entire curriculum by someone else? None of which you chose. You might say, oh, I want to take a business degree, but you're also taking the 7 other courses that you're required to take. Mm-hmm. And I think that makes, I think that that's very hard. When I went to college for a year and a half, and I didn't feel like I had any creativity in any of my classes. I didn't feel growth at all. But when I did 32 days of backpacking Europe after my sophomore year of college, I felt like the most learning I ever did, the reflection on my life and what I wanted ever. So that's why I push that's why I want growth. That's why I have a growth mindset. That's why I always want to learn something new, because I'm putting myself in the unknown, which forces me to learn more about myself that I would have never known.
Yeah. And it's so funny because going back to your dad's buddies, like if they never do any pursuits outside of their business, they get really good at learning who they are as a business person, but they don't have to learn linear. Who they, yeah. And so, yeah, dude, I'm so
you take
with
the business
you right
away.
Yeah.
Who are you?
I want to stick to the college thing too, because I think it's cool that between both of us, we've ended up in the same, like in similar positions, but taking different routes. I think, and
I'm not saying that college is bad. Like now,
for sure.
Like now where I'm at now, sometimes I think about, I've told you this, but like I think about, I think it would be cool to get my master's in business, because I've already been in business now for 5 consecutive years. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, oh, maybe I can add to it, and I'm going to look at education a whole different way.
Yeah.
But like, I didn't know. Anyways. Yeah,
it's tricky, but I mean, the thing that I find interesting about what you were just saying is like, I think so often kids go to college as a default where they're like, I'm going to go there, and hopefully by the time I leave, I'll figure out what I want to do. Right. And so, 2 years in, you've probably taken most of your gen eds, and you kind of have to figure out like what profession that you want to do, or like figure out a direction to go and stuff. Sometimes you've got a decent enough idea where you can kind of point the ship in the right direction. And sometimes it's like, well, fuck, I guess I'll pick a communications degree because that seems like the easiest, and I'll get a piece of paper at the end. But it's funny because college, societally and like pressure wise, right, from your peers, your parents, your teachers, whatever, college is like this acceptable place where people are like, oh, that's a place that we like approve of you going to try to learn about yourself because it seems from the outside like you're being productive. What I think that the pressure though is like,
what's Johnny doing? Oh, he's in school, he's in college, and in Bozeman, and oh, that's great.
But if it's like, hey, Johnny's
partying his ass off every weekend.
Yeah.
You know, like, what's he actually retaining every day when he goes to his classes?
But if you go, but like that same thing, if Johnny also doesn't know what the fuck he wants to do and he's in college, spending tens of thousands of dollars a year trying to figure it out, if you just took that same amount of time, don't even need to take that amount of money, you're not going to go 40 grand in debt traveling the world. But it's so looked down upon to be like, hey, it's acceptable to figure out who you are in college, but for some reason it's not acceptable to be like, hey, I'm going to go,
who you are in the real world.
I'm going to go work as a miner for a little while, or I'm going to go work in the Bakken, or I'm going to go travel for a year. I'm going to do all these things because I think the perception is, oh, these people aren't actually doing the work to figure out who they are. They're just out like fucking off, right? Yeah. Just like out there having fun.
Yeah. That's how they look at it.
But you can be doing the exact same thing in college, and people are like, "Oh,
most of the time you are."
Yeah, I went to school with plenty of dudes that majored in football and drinking Busch Light.
And then you go through college, you get a degree, and you know there might be the kid who didn't go to college, and he's not doing much with his life either. It's not because if you don't go to college, it doesn't mean you're going to now automatically be the next Steve Jobs, but you were trying to figure your life out through college, and then you had come out and you have the same job as the guy that didn't go to college. You guys are both still in the same spot,
but he's probably
one has $50,000 in debt.
Exactly.
You know, and the other one's even only making $20 an hour has a lot more in his savings and a lot more life experience, and a lot more, you know.
Yeah. Well, and I did. So I went to all 4 years of college, graduated with a small business degree and a psychology minor. And shout out to Jenny Reichert, my psychology professor. She was one of the only reasons that I decided to do that. I'm fascinated with psychology, but I was also fascinated with old Jenny. She was great. But anyways, it was like, I have people who ask me all the time, like we just brought this kid Rowan on who's 18. He's a senior in high school. And we've got another dude on our team who's 19 turning 20, and neither of them decided to go the college route. They're both super into like video production and storytelling and all this stuff and all of these skills that don't necessarily require a college degree at all. And they've come to me and asked me like, hey dude, like, I don't think I'm going to go to college. I don't think it's my path and all this stuff. And we've had another girl who had just went to film school, and she was like, I might do a business minor. I might just go to film school. But she was kind of battling, like, what do I do here? And like each of them asked me, they're like, should I do this? Like, should I go to school? Should I not? And every time that I have somebody that asks me a question like that, my answer is, if you want to go into business, like I went to business school, so that was like, it's the easiest thing for me to relate to. What I tell them is like, if you know directionally that you want to do that, what's great about going to business school is that you can have the conversation when the conversation comes up. When somebody's using acronyms like ROI and ROAS and KPIs and all this stuff, you can be
you have a base.
You've got a base understanding of like at least how to have a
terminology,
conversation.
Terminology is extremely important.
Yeah, and then like a base understanding of like how this stuff works, right? Like you might not know this specific engine and how the whole thing's built, but you know like generally how an engine works, and you can like look at it and find your way through it.
Yep.
And so I think that it's worth, if you know that you want to do that, but you don't know specifically, I want to run a marketing company, I want to have a construction company, I want to do whatever, like go get some of those skills if you don't know exactly what it is. But if you're the same person that knows you want to do one of those things, maybe skip college and go work for a contractor for a couple of years, or get, make a little bit of money so you can start your own thing. Or maybe you just go start it already, use other people's money, friends, family, and fools to get started. But it's like, it's such an interesting thing because like, I don't know why it's this place that like, hey, go spend $40,000 to $200,000 trying to figure out what you want to do.
I talk about your gut feeling. If you have a gut feeling, like you don't know what you want to do, but you have a gut feeling that you should go to school, then go to school. If you have a gut feeling when you're sitting in school and you're like, why am I here? And the only reason you can come up with is, well, because my parents, pressured me into it a little bit. All my peers are doing it. I don't know what else to do. But your gut feeling tells you, I would rather not be in school. Then listen to your gut and don't be in school. Mm-hmm. I don't want to be I can so easily sound negative towards parents pushing their kids to go to college and stuff, right, just because I'm a cynic, whatever. But that's not actually true. It's like if you feel good about wanting to be at school, then awesome.
Yeah. But
I know a lot of kids that their gut feeling says I shouldn't be here. Then why are you there? Don't listen to what's around you, dude. Listen to yourself.
Yeah.
That's the most important thing I could ever think of. My gut is typically right for myself. Mm-hmm. It's not always, but 95% of the time, my gut feeling is correct. Most people's gut feeling is correct. Believe in your intuition.
And school's gonna be there.
It'll always be there. Always.
Yeah.
So why be there if you feel like you shouldn't be there? Have the confidence to stand up to your parents or whoever else is pressuring you into it. Walk away.
Their opinions are going to die with them.
Yep. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, I think that it's so...
Go be a pirate.
Yeah, I can be a pirate. Fly the flag, baby. Fly the flag. It's such an interesting time to be thinking about the fact that so many of us, when we graduate at high school, when we're 17, 18, you're expected to be making decisions that are gonna shape the rest of your life, and be like, well, I'm gonna be this person until I retire when I'm 60,
question.
65.
What do you want to be? What do you want to do? What do you want to be? What do you want to do?
Crazy.
Why is that question asked? Adults.
Yeah.
Love to ask kids that. I never asked them that. I never ask kids that question.
What do you want to do?
It's just weird. I'm like, because I know how are you supposed to know?
Yeah.
I mean, some do, right? Their parents were doctors. We want to be a doctor, and you just like are down that path. Cool.
Yeah.
But like,
it's the same version of the question that we ask each other, though. Hey, man, what's your name? Cool. What do you do? It's the exact. We're defaulting to the same shit to kids that have no idea what they want to do yet because we put ourselves into that box.
Yep.
Yeah. There's been, dude. I wish that I could remember more often some of the shit that I come across in the world, but like, there's a lot of versions of ways that people ask instead of like, "What's up, man? What's your name? What do you do?" It's like, "What's your name? What are you into?" Right? Like, even just that small change of like how we ask that second question.
What do you do? What are you into?
Yeah. Because that, chances are, like, you might meet some people who are super into their work and stuff like that. Like, it would probably come up if somebody were to meet us. But like, chances are you're not going to, if they're a nurse, chances are they're not going to be like, I'm super into like being a nurse.
Yeah.
It might be down the line, but you might hear about their rock climbing and their swimming and their fucking guitar hobby and all this stuff. And I wonder where along the line that gets lost.
Yeah. I don't know.
I hope I never lose it. But we had a conversation. I'm curious because this is like right on the lines of the conversation we had a couple weeks ago. But you called me while you were in Belize and you were like, dude, what am I doing? And it's funny because I think travel, like, you have so many of those questions that you ask yourself, but it seems like you've kind of like had a little bit of a shift towards trying to fill your life with more stuff that is outside of just like the main path of the business stuff that you're doing. And I'm curious, like, was there a pivotal moment that caused that shift? And like, what does that feel like right now?
The reason I'll talk about the why I'm trying to like, why I'm actively fulfillment. All right. I want to take on new things constantly, but taking on new things, I know I still have a responsibility to the business that I have started or businesses. Taking on more forces me to be more intentional with my time when I do spend it on the businesses that I already have. And that's what I feel like. If when I have extra time and I don't have anything else going on, right? Oh, I'm not learning anything new, whatever. I just have this business. And I know there's a lot of things I should be doing to make my business better. I'm a natural procrastinator. Oh, I've got lots of time to make my business better. False. You don't have lots of time. That's a lie you tell yourself. It's a way out. So what I'm doing now is what I want to be doing, which is all the cool shit: scuba diving, skydiving, climbing mountains,
buying catamarans,
buying boats, buying catamaran. That's the kind of shit I want to do. So do it, which leaves me a smaller amount of time to work on my business, but it puts my back against the wall. When the Spartans chose to fight the Persians, they specifically chose a cliff behind their backs and an ocean in front of them. There was nowhere for them to go. So you fight like there is no other outcome than live or die. I know that's drastic, but it's allowed me to help me by putting more on my plate of the stuff that I want to be doing. Makes me way more intentional in my business. I can get all those things I need to get done in, I might sit around for 7 hours in a day when really it's only an hour and a half, 2 hours worth of work when I'm being intentional.
Yeah.
So if I fill my other time with whatever, learning how to scuba dive, taking a dive, 3 hours in the gym, and, whatever it is, that's what I realized, and you feel a lot better about everything you're doing. You're just doing stuff and accomplishing.
Yeah, I think it makes you feel like more of a whole person.
Yeah.
But I'm also part of me wonders if some of that is when you're out doing stuff that actually fulfills you as a person. Part of me thinks that there might be something baked into that where it's oh, I want to do way more of this stuff, so I have to pay attention to my business to make sure that I need to allocate time to make sure that that's going well and that's growing, so I can continue to do more of this other stuff that fulfills me.
For sure. Yeah, because all the stuff that does fulfill you, all the, quote unquote fun things, you have to be able to financially support that.
Right.
Which not all fun things that I do, but some of the fun things I do, I'm still thinking about how can that be fiscally advantageous to me down the road.
Yeah.
Not all things, but still.
Yeah. Related to that time management piece, dude, I remember my, the first time that I went to Europe was a super pivotal time for me, because I was I was in this weird spot with the marketing agency that I was working at, where I had just gone through an entire summer where I was working my ass off. Long story short, I'd been there for a little while. The guy that I was working for was hey, if you want to be treated like a partner in this business and be paid like a partner, then you need to show me that you're willing to put in partner level effort. And I had an hour commute both ways, so I was already 2 hours into my day before I even started it. And I went up and worked at that office from about, probably 7:30 or 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. every night, plus a 2-hour drive. So we're talking 12-hour days. I did that for an entire summer, and threw an entire summer away where I was lifting at 4:45 in the morning, was getting 5 hours of sleep, 4 hours of sleep a night. I was coming home and couldn't really train any MMA, jiu-jitsu, boxing, anything. I was just kind of I had to put that aside. My relationship was falling apart. My friendships were non-existent. Like everything was falling apart. And I was just like really bought into this work thing. And I went to Europe on a work trip. We had a trade show to do in Paris, and I added 12 days on the back end of that because I had family friends in Germany. And then one of my best friends from college was playing football in Switzerland. So I'm like, I'm already here on company dime, so I might as well like spend a little extra money and time like traveling and seeing some different things. And the one thing that I noticed when I got over there was I was still technically like working while I was there. I was like, I'll just work remote so I don't have to like take time off or whatever. Dude, same exact thing. I used to sit, when I was sitting in that office for 12 hours or 10 hours a day, I was sitting there getting like, you know, like kind of burning time, and I'd get some shit done or whatever. As soon as I was in Europe and I was like, hey, I've got all this stuff I want to do today. If I sit down in the lobby of this hotel or go to a coffee shop for 2 hours in the morning and bang out all of the stuff on my to-do list, I can be done in 2 hours of focused work.
Yep.
I can turn my phone on silent, put on do not disturb. And like, if I actually grind this out, now the rest of my day where I want to be exploring, hanging out with my like family friends, hanging out with my boys, I can go do all that stuff. And it was so pivotal for me because like having come from this super shitty grind all summer where I was like, I thought that the time was the thing, right? I just have to like put the time into the grind and put the time into this thing. I was like, oh, it's not the time, it's the delivery and it's the progress that you make. So I'm like, if I can do that in 2 hours or 3 hours of focused work, where it was taking me 10 hours back home, why am I not doing that? And that's one of the big things that led me to like starting my own business and doing all that stuff. But I just remember it's such a pivotal shift of like, it doesn't have to be time related. These people that work 9 to 5s, it's an easy structure because it makes sense. But it's like, dude, if somebody told you every day that you could fuck off as soon as your work was done and you could work 3 hours and then go hang out with your kids and then go take music lessons and go do all this stuff,
why wouldn't you do that?
You're probably going to work a lot harder in the time that you're supposed to be working, and then you're going to fill your time with shit that you care about.
Right. So that was a hard thing when you are put in that position at first. Like, oh, I can choose to work when I want because I own my own business. You can fall into that trap where then, oh, I have all this time, but
I fell into that trap immediately,
yeah,
dude.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And it's just, but then it just puts you in a bad place. You're like,
right.
You know, so that's why I'm like actively fill my time. And it's like, our time's fleeting. Mm-hmm. Our time is fleeting anyways. So, you know, it's so much more fulfilling. And like, you know, the answer to everything, this is Alex Hormozy, is work harder, right? Work harder and it makes your life easier. So you that summer up at 4:45, you at the gym at 4:45, 12-hour days, you know, versus 3 hours of intentional work in, you know, in Spain or wherever you were, and then being able to live out the day you want. Which one were you working harder? I mean, you know, going to 12-hour days, like
it was hard, but I wasn't working harder.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
You were telling yourself you were.
Yeah.
You were telling yourself you were working hard.
Checking the box. It looked like I was working harder.
I was like, man, I'm putting in 12-hour days.
Yeah. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah. It's output. And I think that working harder thing, like I think that some of like that hustle porn, alpha motivation stuff can get like kind of tired sometimes, but
and it can get misconstrued.
Yeah, but what I love about it is like working harder doesn't just mean work more hours, get up earlier, hit your cold plunge, hit all this stuff. It's actually like, to me, it's work harder on your work stuff, but also when you're done with that, work harder at becoming a better person and becoming more well-read and becoming a better writer. Whatever the things that you want to be and do with your life, like work hard doesn't just mean like in your profession. I think it's like there's a lot of stuff that still feels great while you're working on it, but like be present and work hard on those things too.
Yep. You know, and maybe, like the circle of my dad's friends and like him, maybe working hard in their business and only their business, maybe that is their fulfillment. You know, who am I to like question that? I just know I can question it for myself, that's not fulfilling to me. You know, maybe being, you know, hardworking in one area of their life, that is for them the fulfillment they want. And who am I to question that for them?
For sure.
But I can question it for myself. Know that doesn't fulfill me.
Yeah. And I think that when you're spending your time doing stuff that actually does fill your cup, I think that it's a compounding effect where if you're working really hard in your business and you're getting fulfillment from like that going well, or in your career, it doesn't even have to be a business, but like you're getting fulfillment from knowing that you're doing a good job there, that's going to make you feel better when you go to do like your hobby thing. And if you're crushing that, you're going to be happier when you go back to work because you're excited about your hobby. And like each thing that's going well because you're like being dedicated to it, being present in it, like doing all that stuff, I think that the more wins that you can have in different areas, they start to make each other like better, right? Because you're being better in your relationship, you're being a better friend. Because you're being a better friend, you're being better at work. And because you're being better at work, you're being better in your hobbies. And like,
yeah, for sure, it
just seems like such a compound effect.
For sure.
So when you're thinking about like where you're going now, so you've got the Kava bar, you've got power, and I mean, just bought a new boat. So you're going to have some stuff in like the tourism industry in Belize. But when you're looking at your path of growth professionally, personally, and all that stuff, what is like on the horizon for you, and how do you see like that picture starting to unfold?
I feel like I'm finally starting to tap into what my potential can be. You know, when I'm in, like, there's a lot of things I want to do when I'm in Belize. And for a couple of years, I was, you know, started kind of going back down there. You know, I'm starting to help my dad. I'm starting to get into the business world down there again. But I haven't been intentional for the last couple of years. It's like go down, like go through the motions. And now I'm like, it's so funny. Like when it clicks, it clicks. You know, we mess around and think about it too much. And that's where you go crazy. It's like
trying to overanalyze.
Now when I'm in Belize, it's like go, you know, like work on the business down there, work on scuba diving, work on the gym, do all the things, and it makes everything better. Cause that's how I operate. Mm-hmm. I operate the best when I'm just go. So I feel like I'm finally at a stage where, I don't know, I feel like I've always known this, but no, I've always known and wanted that, but I overthought how to do it. I want to be, have a present business in Belize. I want to have a present business in the US. You know, I want to be able to still travel between, you know, Belize and Montana and all across the world while staying in top physical shape. Well, how do I do that? How can I can't stay in a routine if, you know, I'm traveling all the time. Yeah. You don't have to have just go, just do, boom, get to, you know, you jump on a plane, fly to Belize, go to the gym, just go, just do it. Mm-hmm. Don't think about it. Just go do it. Yeah. Like it's just like, you know, you can choose to sleep in 2 more hours. You know, I had a hard time when I have all this extra time and I'm not filling my schedule. It's a lot harder to wake up in the morning. Yeah, for sure. I'm like, I'm tired. I slept 7 hours. or 6.5. I might as well sleep another 2. Might as well get my 8.5 hours sleeping. Dude, now that I'm intent on packing my day full of stuff, it's crazy. 6.5, 7 hours of sleep. And I'm like, I'm ready to go. I wake up and I'm like, I'll try. I'll like, all right, dude, just sleep for another hour. Mm-hmm. I'll go to lay my head down and I'm like, what what's happening? I'm awake.
Gears are already turning.
And I'm like, cool. I'm excited because, before it's like, all right, wake up. I'm like, oh man, I definitely need another hour or two of sleep. I'd go to sleep, no problem. Fall back asleep, no problem. Wake up, and I'm like, oh man, you're a piece of crap.
Yeah.
You could have been up, but now, so just pack your day full of stuff. And I'm like, whoa, I'm able to get up, no problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just go, just do stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, we were just talking on the Owner's Journal about Parkinson's law, and it's one of my favorite concepts in the world. Parkinson's law states that the amount of time that you give yourself to do a project is how long that project will take.
Yeah.
And I fucking love that because it is so me. And I was relating it back to school because I think that's where I learned it. The analogy there is when you have a class that you've got a paper that's going to be an entire semester long, and that it's due at the end of the semester. I've been guilty of it where so many times I'll wait until if it's due on Monday at the very end of the semester, I'm not doing any of that work until the weekend before it's due. And I spend Friday through Sunday doing it, bust out the 30-page paper or whatever the whole semester project was. And I got it done in 3 days, but I had 6 months to do it. But that project still took 6 months because that's the amount of time I was given. If somebody would have given me
100%.
that project and said, hey, write 30 pages and do it.
You got 3 days.
Yeah. Do it in 3 days. That's how long it's going to take.
Yep.
If they told me 2 days, that's how long it would have taken. And so I think that when it comes down to even filling
you give me 6 months, it's still going to just take me 3 days.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to push it off to the last 3 days.
Exactly. But from start to finish, it still took 6 months.
Yes.
And so
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's where I'm thinking it's
You're not able to clock the result until 6 months.
And when I go through my busiest phases in my life and my business and all that stuff, I get so much more done when I am busier. And it's not because I have more on my plate. It's because I know that I have to get it done.
Yep.
Right. I've got these deadlines. I've got these clients who are onboarding. I've got, these health goals that I'm trying to go for and all that stuff. As soon as I wrote down 13% body fat by the end of the year, right? That becomes a goal. And it's I will knock that out before December 31st. Right. But if I would have never wrote that down and be yeah, probably I guess the weather will start getting good around May next year. So I'll make sure that I'm kind of cut up then. It's still only going to take me a month and a half of eating pretty clean and working out hard, and I'll still end up in the same place.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? But I think that you can scale that all the way down to what do you spend your days doing? And if you give yourself hey, I have to get an hour of reading in, or I have to get an hour at the gym in, I have to do all this stuff, you end up making so much more of your days because you're actually using that time. And you're not feeling like you're busy, but you check your phone and you had an hour and a half on Instagram that day. Or, you binge watch 3 episodes of your favorite hour and a half show, or your favorite 45-minute show or something. It adds up so fast when you're not paying attention to how you're using your time.
And when you're not doing stuff, it's so much easier. Now I'm packed my day full of stuff, and then I get home I don't really want to watch TV, or not as much as I did,
Mm-hmm.
When you're not doing anything, you haven't used all that creativity in your brain. So that's when you turn on the TV, because when I watch the most TV is when I'm doing the least in my day.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because for me, that's a way to get my creativity out, and all the things that that action, I get it out by watching things that I like.
Yeah.
But it's not doing me any good.
Yep.
So if I'm just full of intent and purpose and action in my days, I don't need to consume television at night.
Yeah.
Because I'm producing in my day.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, I've had this concept lately. I'm really, really bothered by drama, as you know.
Yeah, same.
And that really started when I read the Four Agreements.
I think you're bothered by drama more than me.
Yeah, it really bothers me.
Yeah, like I'm not a fan at all.
Right.
But like,
I have like, yeah, people tell me I have like a visible disdain on my
sometimes
face.
I'm like, dude,
yeah.
I want to be like, hey, fucking, just a little bit, dude.
Yeah.
Fucking,
Yeah.
This is real shit.
Yeah.
I'm also like, it's only real because you fucking made it real.
Right. Right. But I mean, it really started when I read the Four Agreements, and the whole like be impeccable with your word thing really resonated with me for so many reasons. But what I really took out of that is like, if what you're putting out into the world and what you're getting consumed by and all of this stuff is things that don't actually matter to you, and putting out negativity about other people or about like gossip and all this stuff, like that is going to come back to you tenfold. And you're jumping yourself into that pool by engaging in that sort of stuff. And so I've just become very aware of any time that like people are talking shit about each other, people are like starting to gossip around me and stuff like that. I just like remove myself as quickly as possible, or try to put a positive spin on the conversation, or try to exit the conversation as quickly as possible.
Yep.
And it rubs some people the wrong way because they're like, dude, I'm just trying to like blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I just can't level with you in that way.
You tell me your problem, I see the solution right away.
Yeah.
And people don't want to know the solutions.
No, they just want to talk shit.
They're like, I've literally had someone get angry at me because they felt that I wasn't validating their problems. Mm-hmm. It's like, you don't even care that I'm like going through like the, my truck broke down and and we don't have a way to pull this trailer. I'm like, yeah, but I just presented 6 different solutions. I'm like, well, let's just, I'm like, why are we still, I have a hard time with anybody telling me any of their problems or issues, because I immediately see the good. Yeah. Because I'm like, there's now a solution to be had. Right. Which greatness comes out of those. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, it's so hard, which makes me a hard,
hard person to come to shit with.
Yeah. My mom, she'll tell me, she's like, Koby, I'm not one of your friends or one of your employees or one of your, that, I just want you to agree with me and understand that, today so-and-so was rude, and I just want you to be there for my feelings. And I'm like, gosh, but no, I need to just comfort my mom. Yeah. I'm like, I see the solution to this. Right. Yeah. Tell
her she's a bitch, mom, and don't talk to her anymore.
Yeah. I'm like, let it roll up your shoulders. It's all good.
Yeah. One of my favorite questions when somebody comes to me with something like that is like, all right, before we get into this, do you want me to fix this or feel this? If you want me to feel this, I'm here for you, whatever. I'll sit on my hands, I'll bite my tongue, and like, we'll be here for each other. But, but back to what
it's hard for me to feel this though, to take that option, because
me too.
Okay. So here's the thing. I don't know what to say, so it's like, okay, all right. So, if it's my mom, okay, and I bite my tongue and I don't, give a solution because she's not interested in a solution. Just, something, hard happened and she just wants to be heard. Mm-hmm. Understandable. I get it. And that's when you need to be able to just like, show love and like, but I'm like, I don't know what to say.
Me too.
And I don't want to be an asshole. Yeah. But I'm like, I don't know what to say. So I was just, because then you kind of come across as an asshole because you don't say anything.
Dude,
it's just so hard for me. It's so hard.
I get a lot of bad looks.
It can be maybe it's a character flaw of mine to not just have the compassion, to just like, hey, I'm here for you.
Yeah, likewise.
You're right, that sucks.
Likewise.
That person was shitty to you, and I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. That's hard for me to do.
Well, I can get there.
I'll start with I'm always like, Mom, I'm not trying to be, but I'm like, but I see, I'm like, you're right. That was a real situation, but, mm-hmm. So I'm always like,
try to acknowledge their feelings and go to
but I'm still going to give you a solution.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, to rewind back to like the TV and like the gossip and all that stuff. I've been on this concept lately about everybody having a bucket and the fact that it has to be full. And I don't remember how this analogy hit me, but I think that that as humans, we have a specific or a certain threshold of stuff that our brains need to be working on. And I don't know if it came from like caveman times or where it came from, but it seems like we have to have at least like a minimum threshold of stuff where it's like, we're thinking about it, we're working on it, we're worried about it, all this sort of stuff. And so when people have this bucket that they have to fill, there are some people who fill their bucket with like, they care about their work. And so they're like, that takes up some of it. And then they care about their friendships and their relationships. And they've got some like side projects they're working on. And all of this stuff is like things that actually matter to them and it's relevant. And so their bucket is filled to the top with stuff that they're like intentional about and that they care about. I think that when some people have a gap in any of those things, right? If they aren't in a relationship that they're fulfilled by, or if they're not fulfilled by their work or something like that, I think that that bucket gets drawn down and there becomes like a gap where it's not at its mass anymore, at its like peak mass. And I think what ends up happening is that that's where things start to creep in. And if you're not fulfilled by your work and you spend, 8 hours a day doing shit that you don't care about and that you're not fulfilled by and that you don't want to be a part of, the same energy that would have been filling your bucket from your work and being fulfilled by that is now a gap. And that's where your family drama starts creeping in and you start talking shit about your coworkers, or you fill that time with reality TV and you start getting like consumed by this Kardashian is being mean to that Kardashian. And you start to actually fucking care about these things.
Yes.
Like I cannot tell you the amount of times
you actually care about these things because you're not doing enough in your day.
Bingo.
Of the shit that you like.
Because it's like that stuff that you shouldn't care about of reality TV and sometimes sports and some of this other stuff. It's like, it's filling the gap. You're caring about that shit that doesn't matter because these things that you should care about, or these gaps of like meeting your threshold, it's not being fulfilled by something that actually matters. So you're filling it with bullshit. Because I think that our brains have to have that. I think that we have to fill that bucket.
Watch, if you haven't filled your bucket, then it's, dude, for me, I can watch 6 hours. I can watch, if I'm a piece of shit and I don't do all the things I would want to do in my day, I could watch 4 to 6 hours worth of crap at night. Yeah. Because I need more, I need to take in stuff.
Your brain has to be working on something.
And at least it's working on processing the movie and processing the characters and all that crap. Just like you said, so if you don't do enough of the stuff that you want to be doing, then you will fill it with other stuff.
Yeah.
And then that becomes your reality and that becomes your baseline and that.
Right. It's like having $100 that you have to spend. You know what I'm saying? And if you don't spend all $100 of that, then like, let's say you spent 80 of it. And then that $20 just gets thrown to the wind and it just ends up somewhere, but you spent it.
Yep.
None of it mattered and none of it got you closer to like the things you actually care about. It wasn't fulfilling. You didn't get a return on it, but you had to spend it anyways. And now it just ended up in like a crackhead's hands that's going to go spend it on some weird shit.
Yep.
So like I've really been trying to be aware of the fact that like, okay, if I'm catching myself being like, okay, I'm really sleeping in more than I want to. Why is that? Right. Or I'm getting caught like watching too much TV, or I'm feeling a pull to start playing video games again. Or I'm like,
why is that?
It's like, okay, what is that? Have I like let something fall to the side? Have I not been training as much? Have I stopped reading? Have I stopped writing? Is there projects that feel like they're too hard right now, so I'm not putting energy into them because it seems like it's too hard, so I'm going to like avoid them by getting into a new Netflix show.
And also like, so when you're just filling your day full of things that are meaningful to you and you're doing things, then you're not thinking about, because it was frustrating for me to be like, gosh, how do I do these things that I want? How do I, add in reading a chapter every day and studying my Spanish and working on my business. And, you know, but if you just go, then you're not wasting time thinking about how can I do it.
Right.
Which just, it just gets you so bogged. It sounds so simple talking, like, it sounds so simple.
Yeah. Just pick up your phone and Duolingo. Yeah. Just
like,
do it.
You know, but you know, you get bogged down so quickly.
Yeah. And I really do think it's hard to start stuff too. It's the same reason, like, you can spend the same hour, like, waking up and snoozing your alarms and, like, laying in bed scrolling social media and stuff. It's easy to spend that hour doing that. It's really hard to get your ass out of bed on your first alarm and go to the gym. And that time passed either way.
Yep.
But it was a lot easier for one thing. So, like, you know, I'm far from perfect when it comes to a lot of that stuff, but I noticed that when I start making time for it, it seems like more time appears. And I think it's just because I'm already doing it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not thinking about doing
waste.
it. Yeah.
Exactly. When I do way more in my day, crazy thing, I have so much more time.
Yeah. Yeah.
100%.
That Parkinson's law thing, you've only got a day, so just do it all.
Yeah.
It's, the two, I'm curious about yours, but I'll just say the most recent hack, I guess, that I found for creating more time in my day is not scrolling on my phone when I wake up. Because so often I would like, my alarm would go off, I would turn my alarm off, and I already have my phone in my hand, and I'd, like, swipe down to see, like, did anybody text me? Did anybody call me? Did anything pop up on social media? Like, message me, whatever. And one of those things would grab enough of my attention where I'd click into it, and inevitably I'd find myself, like, replying to messages when I wake up, or scrolling on social media, or doing any of that sort of stuff. And it would be so funny because, like, there'd be times where I'd catch myself doing that for 45 minutes, half hour, an hour. And I'll look at the time and be like, damn, well, like, now I have to decide, like, am I going to eat breakfast this morning before my meetings and before my day starts? Or am I going to go work out and then miss breakfast? And I start missing shit that I actually care about because that time passed so quickly while I was just doing nothing.
Yep.
And so that's been it's made it easier. The two things I've noticed is it's made it way easier to be better about my workout schedule when I just don't look at my phone in the morning when I first wake up. And it's made it a lot easier for me to either read or write in the morning when I don't look at it because I have so much more of that time.
Yeah.
And so I think that that's my one, like, recent hack kind of thing that I found in my own life is just, like, turn my alarm off, phone in my pocket or whatever, like, get up and just, like, don't look at it. Don't let that be the first thing that I do during the day, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I try to be intentional about not looking at my phone first thing as well. But the more I pack my days full of stuff, the less time that I need to feel like I need to scroll or that I just subconsciously start looking at my phone and doing all that crap. But also filling my day full of stuff, you know, okay, so then your every day is not perfect still. You know, maybe you went to bed late, you sleep in a little longer. You know, it's not that you slept longer, you just slept in more because you went to bed later. Mm-hmm. And that used to, when I had all this extra time, because I wasn't doing all this other stuff, and let's say I was up late and then I slept in, then I would get up and I'd feel like my day was shot. And I'd be like, I'd get up, I'd feel lost. I don't know what I'm doing. Get in my truck, you know, go get a late coffee, you know, go to work, try to get some stuff done. And then I'm like, I need to go to the gym now. If I have that late morning now, I get up, do my normal routine or whatever I like to do, and just attack the day with the same amount of energy. Yeah. You know, and you just get stuff done. You know, it's just like, who cares that you jumped on a plane and flew somewhere today? Just when you get there, you've got six hours left in the day. Go to the gym, hit the gym, because you didn't get to hit the gym in the morning like you normally do. Mm-hmm. You know, and then you're like, whoa. Then you automatically feel like you have more time.
It creates such momentum too, because if you go the other way, right? Like if you fly somewhere and it's like, well, my day's already real weird, so I might as well like have an airport beer. And then, you get to where you're going and it's like, well, my meals are already all fucked up, so I might as well like go get a burger, and I had a drink at the airport. And
how many times do you hear,
my day's already screwed up?
I don't have enough time to do this. I don't have enough time.
Yeah.
I didn't have time to hit the gym because I had to fly today, and I didn't have, I haven't worked out in 2 months because I started this new job and I'm an apprentice and I'm doing all. That's just because you started saying that, you started doing that. Go to your job for 10, even if you're, a new job, you have to work for 10 hours a day. Get off your job, go straight to the gym. You're tired. You're going to feel a lot better after you work out. Mm-hmm. And then you're like, whoa, I still got a few hours left. And you feel good about the few hours that you have to relax on your couch and have dinner and have whatever. It gives you a whole better appreciation for the time, the leftover time.
Yeah.
Because when you're not filling your day with stuff, I have no appreciation for the extra time.
For sure.
I don't know.
Yeah, because the value of that time isn't as high because you're not filling it with high value activities. Yeah. It's like, oh, well, I guess I got 4 hours, so I guess I'll fill it with some. Again, you have to fill that bucket somehow. Yeah. And we'll get out of here soon. I've got a couple of questions for you at the end, but one of the things that I heard the other day is that there have been a ton of studies about top 3 deathbed regrets, and a lot of them are very similar. It's like, I wish that I would have spent more time with my family and kids instead of working, or I wish that I would have taken a chance on this hobby, or like a lot of it's the same kind of like textbook stuff that you hear. Within the next decade or so, it's projected that climbing very high to the top of that list is going to be, I wish I would have spent less time on my phone.
That's crazy.
It's so wild to think about, because like chances are that the stats on that deathbed stuff was like very skewed towards people who are like dying of natural causes, dying of old age, whatever. But now that some of like the people who have grown up and they got a smartphone when they were 40, and they spent from 40 to 60 or 40 to 70, 40 to 80, and they had that technology, that's half of your life where you were scrolling on Facebook, you had Instagram available, you had all of this stuff. And when I just look, like, I wish that kind of like Spotify Wrapped does like hey, these were your top artists this year, you were a top 1% listener, blah, blah, blah. Sometimes I wish that my phone would give me like, this is how many hours you spent on Instagram. This is how many hours you spent on TikTok. This is how many hours you spent doing this and that at the end of the year. And I would love to see that just as a reminder of like, you spent
200 hours,
30 days total on your phone. What would you have done with those 30 days? Like, you can't tell me that on your deathbed, you're just going to be like, no, I'm really glad that I spent that time like getting my little dopamine fix from Instagram. Yeah. And I tried to, it's been such a trip for me thinking about the fact that it's like, yeah, I already like every day when I go to bed, I'm like, I probably regret the time that I spent on my phone today. It's a very minor thing. Yep. But when I'm 80, like, add those hours up. And that's one thing that I've been trying to think about is like, okay, if this is going to be a potential deathbed regret for me and I'm still engaging in it every single day, like, how do I change my relationship with this?
Airports are a huge reminder. I people watch and I'm just like, holy cow. Vast majority, everyone's just boom on their phone. They'll be eating.
The multitask eating and scrolling.
Dude, like husband and wife right next to each other. I'm just like, whoa.
Yeah.
I'm like, it just makes me just put my phone away. I'm like, oh.
How much better would, I mean, so much of our shit, dude. Our friendship, we spend nearly zero time on our phones when we're around each other. Mm-hmm. But even if we took out the little time that we were on our phones, how much better would that be? Oh yeah. How much better would our relationships be with, our significant other, our families?
Like, I think about that, which is good because it allows me to try to put it away as much as possible.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And pack your day full of more shit, and then you're not gonna be on your phone as much, you know. And I'm like, I like to look at my phone for like 20 minutes when I lay down at bed at night.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And, but even then I'm like, if you have a healthy relationship with it, like you can utilize this technology to the best of its ability.
Mm-hmm. I think
you have to really, really understand that.
There's a lot of traps laying on that thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it comes down to being intentional with it. You know, I remember when you when you fell victim to your Instagram hack.
Yeah.
And you had to start over. I remember.
I had no Instagram for like 6 months, and it was amazing.
Right. And I also remember when you got back on Instagram and you were
very, very intentful.
You were like, dude, I'm only liking these kinds of posts. I'm only following these kinds of pages. I'm not doing this, that, and the other thing. And that was impactful for me because I was like, oh yeah, you can like
change the algorithm.
Yeah, it responds to
which
you.
I did. And it still is that way for the most part, you know, pretty much all cultured around, you know, cultivated around the things that I like and want to see. Mm-hmm. So that's where I'm like, okay, cool. I've, you know, been very intentional about following, you know, philosophers that I like, doctors that I like, you know, people that are inspiring to me, you know, those kind of, because I take value out of it. So that's where, but you can still get lost in that. You could death scroll, you know, into eternity, even with, you know, what you think is positive crap, right? It's just your weight. So, so I'm mindful about the time I spend on it, but I treat it as like listening to a TED talk when you're in your truck, or, you know, reading a chapter out of, you know, the 4 Agreements or whatever, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think intentionality is such a huge thing, right? Yeah. Like everything from like how you curate it to how much time you spend on it and stuff. And
I can't even have, because of you, I don't know where you got this from. You've told me before, but just even being intentional with taking a shot or cheersing a drink. I'm like, I can't not look at you in the eyes while I cheers this drink now, because I'm like, hey, this is something important. Like, freaking grab this drink. I'm like, so one time we're taking shots, and Drew's like, I think it was Alicia and me, and you were mad at both of us because we like took it, like, cheers, and he's like, both of you didn't look at me. I'm like, what are you talking about, dude? And you're like, I don't know where you learned it, but you're like, when you cheers, and you look each other in the eye. And dude, I do that with everybody now, because it's just like, you know, hey, time is fleeting. Mm-hmm. Time is passing. Like, let's be intentional about, we're cheersing this drink together. I might not see you again, but someone might die in a car accident when we leave from here.
Right.
So the last time we had a drink together, we looked each other in the eyes and like, hey man, it's fucking good to have you here.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, dude. And those little moments too, where it's like, it's acknowledging that like, we're doing this because we want to be with each other right now. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's not about the drink. It's not about the emotion. Like, you know, it's not about being, you know, wherever we're at right now. It's like, we're here because of each other. Yeah. We're here like doing this thing.
Yeah. Making that cheers meaningful. Yeah. You know?
Yeah. It's a cultural thing that comes from Europe. And dude, same kind of thing. It bothered the hell out of me because my buddy Max went and played football in Switzerland. He's the one that I was visiting when I went to Paris for the first time. And this motherfucker came back and he was like, you know, we were all still in college. So we were giving him the hardest time. He was like, oh, over in Europe and blah, 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 blah. It's like, okay, bud, shut up. Yeah. But one of the things that he brought back was, he was like, it is extremely offensive if you cheer somebody and you're like looking away or looking down, or like, it's like a blatant sign of disrespect.
Yeah, cardinal sin.
And he's the one that got me onto it. And he would be like, hey, like, look at me when we're doing it. And it was kind of like became a joke and stuff, but I started to really like, I loved it because I was like, oh yeah, fuck yeah, dude. Like I always like, you know, me and Luke and Max were always just really good about that. And it's something that I've found to create a lot more presence in those moments with people that you care about. Yeah. But yeah, little stuff. Spend less time on your phone. Look your friends in the eyes when you give them cheers. Yep. Be present.
Which are those little things are the huge, those little wins that stack up.
Yep, absolutely. So I'm trying to figure out, I really like both on our Owner's Journal podcast and other podcasts that I listen to, I love having like a set of like boilerplate questions at the end to see like how people answer them differently. And we've kind of messed with a couple, but as you were saying that about like doing the cheers thing, I'm trying to figure out what those like questions will be for this show. So I'll keep messing with them, but it made me think when you were saying like, this might be the last drink we have together. This might be like the last present moment we have together and that sort of stuff. It makes me think like, if you were to have a present moment, if this was your last present moment and you wanted to be like remembered for what you were thinking right now, what you said in this moment and that sort of stuff, what would you want to be like your exiting speech? Like, what would you want to say to be like, yep, this is my last one?
That's a big one.
Yeah. But what would you feel good about being like, yeah, that was my last moment. Like, I said something that somebody might have taken away from, or the person that I was with was like, hell yeah, that was a good last one.
Becoming fearless. It's been the strongest attribute to my life, not living in fear that, I have to go to school because so-and-so said so. I can't start the business because, 90% of small businesses fail. I can't buy a house because I haven't had a job for 2 years. I don't have the taxes. There's a way you can do any and everything. Guess what? You don't have to have a job for 2 years to buy a house. I can promise you that. I've done it many times.
Yeah.
How can I buy a house? No. There's a way to do every and anything. So it's just being fearless. It's been a natural strong suit of mine, but everybody can be, you can all work on being fearless. Be aggressive in being fearless. It's be aggressive in being fearless. It doesn't come natural. Work on it, because that's where all the most beautiful things lie. Think about it. The things that you fear the most, once you do them, give you the most joy in life. Skydiving, terrified me. Once I jumped, one of the single best feelings I've ever had in my entire life.
It's awesome.
Right? So, that's a big one. It's a big one for me.
Be fearless. I like it. Tied to that, it's a little bit easier of a question, but we asked, Clay loves asking the question of like,
Clay?
Yeah. Of like, what would you go back and tell your 20-year-old self or your 15-year-old self or whatever? I think it's funny when we ask that question, or when people get asked that question, because a lot of times the advice that they give to the earlier person is like advice that they should probably hear now too. But I've been curious, what's advice that, you're almost 30 now, crazy air horn. You're almost 30 now. What advice do you think
29
that, for all those listening, what advice do you think that like 60-year-old Koby would look back and give you right now that you would need to hear?
Think and attack 100 times bigger than you already are. Take 100 times more action than you are right now. Take 100 times bigger vision at what you think you can be. You can only grow into what you put in front of you. It's the fish in the fish tank. It'll only grow as big as its, tank. Think 100 times bigger in everything. 100%. I forget about that sometimes. You can accomplish whatever you set your mind to. So set it 100 times bigger than what you're thinking right now.
I'm a huge victim of that, dude.
Yep.
All the time. Yeah, all the time. I remember you texted me one time. It was like going into New Year's, and we were talking about like goals for the year and stuff like that. And it's like, oh, I want to hit this. You're like, triple that.
Yeah.
I was like,
I think we had that conversation up in the office.
We did. And I was like, yeah, but like, this is pretty attainable and blah, blah, blah. He's like, yeah, but triple it, because if that's your goal, then you're gonna do different.
You're gonna fall short of it.
Yeah, you're gonna do different things to get there, and you're gonna smash the other goal. And if you hit this one, it's like you would have never taken those steps if you weren't aiming for it.
Yep.
So aim for it.
Yep.
And it's I really appreciate having people like you around to remind me of that stuff.
Which, you know, it ties into being fearless. You know, I mean, of course I had fear before every single MMA fight, you know, before any, you know, but I knew that on the other side of that would be a great feeling, you know. So you fight the fear, you know. Cliff jumping scares the shit out of me, but fear angers me. It makes me upset.
Yeah.
Like, why do I have this when I know greatness is on the other side? Why am I letting this hinder me? Why am I slowing up? Why am I wasting 20 minutes because I'm scared to jump off this cliff? When I know
worst feeling.
Greatness is across, I'm like, I feel like a champion when I jump off that cliff.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you know, 6-year-old me, the only thing is going to be, don't waste time thinking that you can do these, you know, it's not going to come, you know, like, oh, when I'm 50, oh, I've done really well, and now I can do something bigger, you know, because I've stacked up my nest egg, and, you know, I've learned a lot. Okay, I'm ready to expand. No, the only thing I could say is, if I was 60 years old giving myself advice now, is take on way more than you are right now. Take on way more.
Just go.
Take on way more. Get, you know, have, you know, five Kava bars, you know, attainable to have opened in the next 2 years. Bullshit. Let's have 100 open in the next 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Take on way more you're capable of.
I love it. Heck yeah, man.
In everything that you're doing.
I love it. Awesome. For everybody that wants to find your business, find you, where can they go to check you out?
Don't
come looking for me.
Kava Roots, baby. Kava Roots, 928 Broadwater. That's where the Kava bar is.
Locations in Laurel. Butte coming soon.
Yep. Kava bar, Kava Roots, Laurel, the Vault, 101 East Main. January 1st, we'll have a new location up and running in Butte. And not long after that, we will be in Missoula. And not long after that, we will be in all 50 states, my boy.
Coming for the world, ladies and gentlemen. Well, dude, this was dope. We ended up obviously using your awesome space at 928 Broadwater, by the way. But yeah, super sick we got to do this. And it is now
2 in the morning.
2 in the morning. Is it 3 in the morning or 2 in the morning now?
Is it 3? It's 3 in the morning.
It's now 3 in the morning. And
it's 3 in the morning.
Yeah, we've had a lot of fun 3 in the morning stories,
That's
but
wild.
this is up there. This is a good one.
Hey,
fun shit.
Remember, Sky King.
Yeah.
Sky King.
All right. We love you, everybody. Peace.